Welcome back to the Molasses Report. Guess what? I'm still alive. And shockingly, the family hasn't disowned me yet after last week's tattoo reveal. But today I want to talk about a role a lot of people fall into without really ever volunteering for it, being the single friend. Not newly single, not loudly single, just constantly single. The one who's always available, the one who always brings the extra chair, the one who knows everyone's partner's name, but rarely gets asked about their own. This isn't about dating advice. It's about the quiet psychology of being the person whose life doesn't follow the paired off script. No one tells you when it happens, the day you realize your friendship dynamic has changed. Group plans become double dates, conversations drift towards mortgages, shared calendars, and invites start sounding like, "You're welcome to come," obviously, which is polite, but different. You're not excluded from anything, but you're just adjacent. And it's subtle enough that you feel really silly actually naming it because no one's done anything wrong. Everyone's just moving into the next chapter, and you're still in yours. As the single friend, you become the easiest one to schedule. You're flexible, you're accommodating, you'll drive, you'll adjust. You're the one people call last minute, not because they don't value you, but because they always assume you're free. Sometimes you are, but sometimes you're tired of just being there. The extra seat, the "we'll see if anyone else can make it" option. You don't want to be someone's afterthought. You just don't know how to ask for more without sounding ungrateful. There's a strange grief in watching people build lives that no longer revolve around you. Friends get engaged, friends move in together, friends have inside jokes you weren't there to hear, but you're genuinely happy for them and also quietly aware that the future you imagined is changing shape. And because you're single, people assume you're waiting for a partner, waiting to start, waiting for your real life to begin. But you're not waiting, you're living. It just doesn't look like the version they recognize. Being single doesn't mean being disconnected. In fact, you're actually deeply attached to friendships, to work, to routines, to your own life. You know yourself in ways that happen when there's no one else to outsource decisions to. You've learned how to sit with yourself, how to make choices alone, how to build a life that isn't dependent on another person's timeline. That's not emptiness. But yeah, sometimes it is lonely, but it's also expansive. There's a specific moment that hits harder than you expect. It's not the first engagement or even the second. It's when weddings stop feeling like fun events and start feeling like a season. You open your phone and it's another ring photo, another "we can't wait to do life together," another "save the date" magnet for a fridge you don't share with anyone. And you're happy. Truly. You love these people. But happiness doesn't cancel out grief, it just coexists. Because every wedding is also a quiet reminder that the version of friendship you had is changing. Late nights turn into early exits, spontaneity turns into scheduling, and you start noticing how often you're the only one showing up alone. No one makes you feel bad about it. which somehow makes it harder to talk about. So you smile, you toast, you dance, then you go home to a life that is still yours alone. People also assume being single means you're actively dating, swiping, meeting, trying. But sometimes being single means you're exhausted, tired of explaining yourself, tired of starting from scratch, tired of chemistry that doesn't turn into consistency. Dating burnout doesn't look dramatic. You stop telling friends when you're talking to someone new because you don't want to explain later why it didn't work. And then people begin asking, "Are you seeing anyone?" And you don't really know how to answer because technically, no, but emotionally, you've been through a lot. Burnout doesn't mean you don't want love, it just means you're tired of auditioning for it. As more people couple up, you notice the expectation shifting. You're the extra seat, that third wheel who jokes about it first, the one who can stay late because no one's waiting at home. You start measuring yourself slightly against everyone else's paired life. And maybe you feel a little tired of it. A little tired of being the default single. A little tired of never being the one someone marks on the calendar first. I know that feeling. I've lived it. I've been the single friend pretty much my entire adult life. And there's a bittersweet lesson in that. You build independence. You learn patience. You get comfortable being complete without someone else. As more people couple up, you start noticing where you're expected to fit. Again, you're that extra seat. People assume your time is flexible, your needs are smaller, your life is easier. Being the single friend means carrying your own weight without a witness. No shared memory to lean on, no built in backup, no one automatically on your side at the end of a long day. You build resilience quietly, and it doesn't often get recognized. When you're single, though, your friends are often your biggest cheerleaders. They're all like, "You'll find someone. Your person's out there. It'll happen when you least expect it." Like they say that with like full confidence, with warmth, and honestly, with certainty. But what's weird there though is when you're the single friend for so long, when you actually bring a date, it's suddenly so weird. Like it's not hostile per se, but it's like uncomfortable because the energy's changing. The jokes that they used to give to you are landing differently. The questions start getting a little bit more cautious because it just turns out that like everybody was comfortable with you being the single one. Like in theory, looking out, you're doing your thing, but like you're technically available. So, like, when you show up with someone, you're no longer the flexible plan. You're no longer the guaranteed yes. You're no longer the emotional utility player that kind of checks whatever box needs to be checked that week. Now you've got your plus one, a time boundary, a competing priority. And weirdly, the thing they encouraged is what actually disrupts the whole system. It's like they root for your future relationship as long as it stays in the future. And again, no one's being malicious here. It's just when roles get rewritten that the dynamic changes. Like you didn't break the dynamic, but you changed it and stopped fitting the old part. But yet when they broke it and got married, did their thing, that didn't break it. It just became new. But here's the part that no one prepares you for. When that single friend finally gets it right. It doesn't look like a movie, doesn't feel sudden or loud or overdue. It just feels calm. Because by then, you've already done so much work alone. You're not desperate. You're not trying to be chosen. You're not molding yourself into someone easier to love. You know your rhythms, your boundaries, your deal breakers. And when someone enters your life, they're not filling an emptiness, they're joining something that's already full. The irony is, the time people thought you were behind is often the time that made you ready. Ready to choose well, ready to walk away if need be, ready to stay. Suddenly, being single for so long doesn't feel like a bad thing. It actually feels like training. Think a lot of single friends imagine that finally getting it right's gonna feel loud, like fireworks, like a story you can't wait to tell. But if I'm being honest, I think when it actually happens, it's gonna be quieter than that. I imagine it doesn't start with the spark, it starts with ease. You don't feel like you need to perform, you don't feel like you need to convince, you don't feel like you need to speed things up so it doesn't slip away. You're not asking yourself, is this something every 5 minutes? You're just there. And the biggest difference? You're not abandoning yourself to make it work. You're not shrinking. You're not over explaining. You're not twisting your life into something more convenient. You still have your routines, your friendships, your space. And instead of worrying that being single for so long made you too much or too set in your ways, you realize it made you clear. Clear about what feels good, clear about what doesn't, clear about what you're no longer willing to negotiate. I imagine the single friend who finally gets it right isn't dazzled. They're calm because by then they've already built a life they like. So the relationship won't be a rescue. It's not a reward. It's not proof that they were lovable all along. It's just an addition. And maybe the quiet twist in all this, the years people thought you were behind, were the years that taught you how not to lose yourself once someone finally shows up. If you're the single friend right now, or if you've been the one who was always unpaired, I want you to know you didn't miss your moment. You weren't forgotten. You weren't passed over. You were becoming. You were learning. You were practicing how to love yourself first. Your life isn't on hold, it's just unfolding in its own rhythm. And when the time comes, whatever it looks like, I imagine you'll be ready. This has been the Molasses Report. Thanks for staying with me.